Well, what I would do is I would fully blame it on the person back in the day. I'd say, well, that person must be the problem. That person probably isn't competent enough to do this. And so then I would bag the person and I would go find another outsourcer. I'd go find another person to do that work. And when you do that 3, 4, 5 times in a row, you end up realizing maybe the person that is the problem is not the one on the other end. Maybe it's me. Why was it that I kept getting this bad result back from delegation? I started to analyze what I sent them. I said, well, how can I make this so there's zero chance that they will not be clear what this is? What's up, y'all? Guys, in this episode, I'm going to be talking about something that every single one of you are doing or should be doing, probably doing wrong, can improve on, and I've probably made every mistake in the book around this topic of delegation. So in this leadership series that I'm going on, I talked about some of the mistakes I've made in some areas of leadership. And this mistake is one of the bigger ones, because if we don't delegate effectively, we actually end up limiting the growth of the business. If we don't delegate effectively, we actually end up hiring people, whether it's an outsourced person or an employee, thinking that it's going to buy us time back, and actually costs us more time. It actually makes us more frustrated. It actually makes it harder on us if we don't delegate effectively. If we don't delegate effectively, it actually becomes very, very expensive, and it's very, very stressful. And I know for me, when I was first learning how to delegate, probably back in 2012, I would get so frustrated that the thing I delegated, I would just get done. I would stay up until 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, and just get it done, because the person that I delegated to, I felt was not getting it right. And every time they brought something back to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. And we've all probably heard the phrase of, if you want something right, do it yourself, right? And I think we've probably all done that. And so if you resonate with this at all, you've ever thought that, oh my gosh, if you want something right, do it yourself. Or I've tried delegation, it doesn't work. I can't find any good people. No one's actually wanting to do good quality work, or it actually is harder for me. If you've ever experienced any of those, I've experienced them all as well. I'm going to walk you through how I've combated that. So there's a few things I'm going to be diving into on the delegation side of things as I'm out here on a walk, wrapping up one of my 75 hard workouts with the dog, doing a little mile walk back to the house. So you're going to hear a little bit of road noise. I'm not driving, but there's a septic pump pumping what you would pump from a septic tank from a house I'm walking by. So just harden that noise there a little bit. But the first mistake that I had made on delegation, y'all, is not being clear enough. It's clarity. And that's something that honestly has continued to be a challenge for me in my life, where I always have to go, okay, did I make that clear enough? Did I communicate it well enough? Was it what they had needed to be successful? So I'm going to give you a few examples of doing it right and doing it wrong. And then we're going to dive to the next tip, which is don't allow your team members to delegate up or for you to take the monkeys on their backs. So let's talk clarity. Clarity is key, because as we're diving into a process called the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, it's an amazing book. One of the things towards the bottom of the pyramid to get good results is clarity. So once you have trust with somebody, then you need to make sure that you're removing ambiguity from that thing that you're working on them with, so they have full crystal clear clarity of what the heck you're asking them to do. And so what I would do in the past was I would have an idea in my mind. I'd write it down. I'd shoot them a quick email or a Slack message or a Boxer or whatever it is. And then I would, in my mind, go, cool, that's delegated. And then I would go on my merry way doing my work. And then I would come back a week later or 4 days later, or whenever it was, when I had thought the thing was supposed to be done, and they're not done yet. And then they hit me up and say, well, I'm having some challenges with this. Just give me a couple more days. I'm like, okay, cool. They're probably busy. Maybe it was a little harder than I thought it was going to be. Give them a couple more days. So you give them a couple more days, and then you hit them up and go, cool, I'm excited to see this thing. And they go, well, yeah, I'm having this problem. Can I get one more day? And you guys know the gig, right? And that keeps happening. Well, what I would do is I would fully blame it on the person back in the day. I'd say, well, that person must be the problem. That person probably isn't competent enough to do this. And so then I would bag the person and I would go find another outsourcer. I'd go find another person to do that work. And when you do that 3, 4, 5 times in a row, you end up realizing maybe the person that is the problem is not the one on the other end. Maybe it's me, right? And so then as I started to learn, I go, okay, well, why was it that I kept getting this bad result back from delegation? Well, what did I send them? And then I had started to analyze what I sent them. I said, well, how can I make this so there's zero chance that they will not be clear what this is? How do I make it so there's zero chance that they could not be clear what it is? So I started to record Zoom videos or Loom videos and say, okay, well, let me record what this is. I would sometimes draw something out, but here's what the key is. This one key is what saved it for me, is then asking the question of that person, okay, can you repeat back to me, or can you say back to me what it is that you feel that I'm asking you to do? That one question, y'all, can save your bacon. Okay. So no matter how good you think your process is, or you think your delegation is, or the email or the Slack message, oftentimes there's missing pieces, and you're going to be frustrated when you get something back that's not as you thought it was going to be. So ask the question, are you clear what this is? And can you repeat back to me what you feel I'm asking you to do? And almost every time what they repeat back to you is going to be a little bit off or a lot off from what you had thought. And that's an opportunity to correct that clarity before they start. And I can guarantee they're going to start delivering stuff faster, more accurately, making it easier for you. I'll give you one micro example, then move to tip 2. But with this example, it's actually recently, so it's something I'm still battling, even with the team of 60 plus people at Carrot. So I had an amazing team member, one of my A players, just amazing team member. I can trust her for anything. She took on a task for a really important project. Now, this task isn't something that she would normally do, but she's an A player, team player, and she's like, I'm just going to dive in and help get it done. So I had typed out some guidance inside of Asana where the project is being ran on what I wanted this page to look like. Now, in hindsight, I rushed through it. I didn't really make it very clear. I didn't have a drawing. I didn't give her an example. I didn't do a Loom video, and I just moved on. Now, the next week we meet for a project update, and she goes through it. She did amazing work, but the problem was it wasn't anything like what I had envisioned in my mind, and it missed some key elements to make it really work the way that it needed to work. And so then at that point, we had a chance to look at it, coach her. Now she's going to go do it. So will the end result be good? Yeah, it will be. But the problem is I caused double work for her, and I caused double work for me, and it caused a delay in the project. If you do that 5, 10, 15 times a month, you're eating up dozens of hours of your time and your people's time, and you're delaying projects over and over and over again and making it so things move slow. So I wasn't clear enough for her. Okay. So the second mistake, y'all, in delegation is allowing people to delegate up, or what I call taking their monkeys. So I read a book a number of years ago called The 1 Minute Manager and the Monkey. So if you have a team, even if it's just one person, even if it's a part-time executive assistant, you should get the book. You can read it in a couple hours, 1 Minute Manager and the Monkey. And in there, he tells stories of managers who take on their team members' work. And I think it's pretty darn common. I know it's something I have done a lot over the years. I'm a little bit better at it today, but still I'm working on it. And over the years, what's happened is the team member will come in, they'll have a challenge, or we'll be on a call and we're mapping out a project. The person will have a challenge, and then the question will come up of who's going to do this. And so me being the guy who wants to help and be a team player and wants to make sure that I'm not making my team members feel like they're, they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, I'll go, hey, cool, I'll take that on and I'll get it back to you on Thursday. Now, what happens is if you do that once and you've got plenty of time in your schedule, it's not a big deal. But what if you do it 2 times in a day? What if you do it 3 times in a day? What if you do it 10 times a day and you still got your normal workload? Well, what happens is you don't have any time to do your actual work. You get behind on things. You deliver those commitments late or not at all. Trust starts to erode between you and those team members. And because trust erodes, now they don't believe you when you then say you're going to tackle that and do that. And they have a fear that anytime they get into a project, I don't know if we can have this person in here, that my leader in here, taking these on, because they probably won't deliver it on time anyway. Even though the full intent of you or me in the situation is I'm just here to help. And so I recognize that wasn't actually helping over the years. And so what you do instead, so if someone comes to you and says, hey, here's this challenge, and you're going, cool, let me think about it and I'll get you something back on Thursday. Don't do that. Instead, ask them some questions and put the monkey back on their shoulders. Keep the delegation going downstream. Never let your team members delegate up. Okay. And so if they would bring you, you'd say, hey, awesome, Graham. Great question. What do you think? Let's first clarify, what is the challenge we're trying to solve here? So first of all, clarify the challenge so you guys are on the same page. Okay, talk about it. Cool. We're clear on the challenge or the opportunity we're trying to solve. And then you can next go, okay, cool. Would you be able to come up with your 3 best ideas on how we can solve this? And when do you think you'd be able to have those by, Graham? I don't know. I'm kind of busy this week, but maybe Friday. Okay, cool. Why don't you put a calendar note on for Friday at 10 o'clock? We'll do a 10-minute meeting. And why don't you bring your 3 solutions at that time, or you can Slack them through to me at that time. And when you do that, I want you to also give your 1 recommendation. So it's called the 1-3-1 principle. What's the one problem or challenge or opportunity you're aligned on solving? What are the 3 options that you've researched and looked at that may solve it? And then pick your 1 and tell me why you recommend that one. Now you're training them to research. You're training them to solve problems. You're training them to take things. And after you do that, they're going to stop bringing you those problems without solutions. They're going to proactively bring those solutions to you rather than you taking their monkeys. Every monkey you take is another indication to them that, hey, they like taking my monkeys. They like taking these things on. He always says yes to these. He must like these things. So I'm going to bring this to him. He's good at it. Makes my job a little bit easier. And he says yes to him. So you can no longer do that. So that's mistake number 2. And that's a big one. And like I said, I'm still continually working on it. Mistake number 3, and we'll kind of wrap with mistake number 3 on the delegation side, is not understanding whose job something actually is. And so at every stage in your business, we've talked about this before, things break at 3s and 10s. Okay, so 30,000, 100,000, a million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million, 100 million, things break. And now they break because at those revenue levels, you usually have to do something different to grow. So a new marketing thing or new sales thing or new product, which causes changes in the business, or you have to hire people at those levels. And every time you hire people, as you get over certain thresholds, like your first 1 or 2 employees, then 8, and then 20, and then somewhere around 40 to 50, and then, it keeps on going. At those levels, what happens is communication cadences have to change, planning structures have to change, ownership of who owns these things has to change. And some of the mistakes I've made over the years is me not understanding that something that I'm taking on is actually that person's job. If we just didn't make it clear that it's their person's job, that it's their job to own. So going back to tip number 2 of not adopting your team members' monkeys, is I was adopting way too many of my leaders' monkeys below me because we weren't sure whose job it was to do that thing. And so I just assumed I'll tackle it to help serve them, and ended up not serving them at all because it makes their job harder. They can start to get into analysis paralysis because they're like, well, does Trevor want to do this, or is this his job, or is this mine? And it also starts to take away some of their growth opportunity, because if you're not allowing them to go do those hard things, it should be their job that you're tackling, then you're going to stunt their growth inadvertently. And I have inadvertently done that so many times, and it pains me because I don't like it. They don't like it. It's the hard way. It's not the easy way. It's not good for anybody. But it's a trap that over and over again over the years I'd fallen into. Gotten better, but I'd fallen into it. And so one of the keys there is making sure that you're very clear as you grow. Is it this person's decision? Like, who's responsible? Who's accountable to the thing? How do we communicate this, and how do we communicate when this is done or when we need help? Okay, and who needs informed of this thing? There's something called the RACI chart, RACI. Who's responsible? Who's accountable? How do we communicate this, and who needs to be informed? Okay, and so just be really, really clear when you're working on a project together. Okay, is this person responsible for this? Meaning the buck ultimately stops at that person. That if that result doesn't happen in the business, it's ultimately that person's fault, or that person's really the one who has to drive that outcome. Then the responsibility or the accountability part is, well, okay, this person over here is responsible for that outcome happening, but I'm accountable for this action to happen. Okay, the person over there is responsible for the outcome, so I must need to work with them or align with them that these are the right steps, but I'm accountable for this action item to be delivered by this date at a good high quality. And then we ask, okay, well, if we're doing this, how do we communicate this effectively when we have a block, or when we need to communicate with other people? And then who do we need to keep informed of this decision we made of this project? Okay, so those are the 3 things, guys. I'll kind of repeat them really quick. But number 2 was don't let people delegate upstream and take the monkeys on their back. Number 1 was clarity. Make sure we're crystal clear what it is that we're asking someone to do. Do a Loom video, do a drawing, do whatever it is, but then ask them, can you repeat back to me what it is that you feel that I'm asking you to do? It might feel weird the first couple times, but afterwards, that team member will feel like it's magical because it's going to save you guys so much time. And then number 3 is be clear on whose job is what, who's accountable, who's responsible, and then set a clear date. All right, guys. So like I said, things change at 3s and 10s. So if you're at a spot where you just hit one of those revenue milestones and things are getting hard on the delegation, below $1 million, you're pretty much delegating tasks to people. Okay. You're going to do that thing. You're going to make a process for that thing. Then you're going to delegate that thing, usually delegating things that you've already done. Once you get over $1 million, you're going to start to bring in managers from 1 to 3 million. So you're delegating the daily, the weekly delivery of a set of tasks. So sales calls or transaction management or marketing tasks. And then 3 to 10 million, you're delegating results, meaning you bring in your first director or 2, and that director is responsible for creating the plan and then delivering the results of the plan. Okay. And then over 10 million, you're delegating strategy, where you bring in your first VP or VPs. That person now is in charge of developing the strategy on how we are actually going to tackle this part of the market. Then they build out the team and set the budget. So hopefully this helped you guys. Go check out the rest of the leadership series. I'm going to wrap. I've got a call to head into. But if you guys like these episodes, give us a rating, review, hit follow, hit subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. And y'all, I read every single one of the reviews on Apple and Spotify, and I'd absolutely love to read yours as well. Check it out. Pop me a note in there. It gives me life. It gives me fuel to be able to know that I'm adding value to your life. And share this episode with somebody. Think of somebody who's having a challenge delegating. It could be a team member of yours that you're having a challenge delegating to. It could be your friend. It could be your brother. It could be your boss. Share it up with somebody and light up the world. All right, guys, have an amazing rest of the week.